What's up, WWE Champions Universe? Welcome to Champions Chat, the fastest growing podcast dedicated to the WWE Champions mobile game. I'm Ivy Nile, Rusty Graves, and with me as always, Chad Gable. We're American made. What's up, Lee?
We just had a stream crash, which shows if I'm Chad Gable and have to be the jerkhole here. What did you do? It was nothing that I did. It was all something you must have done. I am perfect and you're no. My Streamlabs crashed. I don't know what the heck's going on there. What's up, Spider Guard? What's up, Derek?
Chad Gable's greatest moment might have been when he came out after the Wyatt 6 debut and he said, "It's a miracle! I'm alive!"
Oh, that is good.
I'm the luckiest man on earth. Yeah, that was an insane acknowledgement of a very large gap in the story.
Right.
Lee, we've got some stuff to talk about today. Today's show notes look like this. We're going to talk about the Stip Tour update, how to win at Gym-Mania. After that, we're going to talk about a hot topic, what your faction mates aren't telling you. I've got some things for you to respond to. I think it'll help us all grow in our understanding of what our faction mates are thinking. And truthfully, I went out to some faction members of our faction and other factions and helped generate this list. And
Nice.
if you have anything the list, that'll be exciting. And then we're going to talk through the real world of professional wrestling in our WWE chat.
Wow.
So Lee, I ask you this, friend, Stip Tours, should they still be ignored or are they worth playing, and why?
Wow. Big questions right out the gate. I don't think they ever should have been ignored, but I admit that I have mostly ignored them for the last few years. I still don't have IOW Undertaker, and we'll find out Friday, tomorrow, I guess, whether I'm going to be able to get him sooner or later. But I will say I am getting more stuff. Particularly, I'm focused on the gold tickets for the Marquee Stip Tour, because I need IOW Taker. I'm getting more of them per day now than I ever have. But I will say the challenge level on this one is a lot harder. Like, especially, we talked about it, but somebody in Facebook posted, who are you using for, this was day one of Gym-Mania, who are you using for your Gym-Mania Stip Tours? And somebody posted Powerhouse KO, and several people just went, yeah, how's that going for you now, sucker? Like, it doesn't work anymore. You can't cheese it the way you could.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good update. I think it'll take some getting used to, and definitely we're a few days in now and seeing like, oh, they're not kidding. You actually have to use a lot of like right now it's blue, but it's been blue plus multi, blue plus pyro, and then blue plus sub. Like, it's very different than what we experienced before.
Right. JP Fortin in the chat says, your question is the Stip Tour or Skip Tour? Which one? I love that. I have found the stipulation tours. I guess we call it Gym-Mania now. I don't even know if it's called stipulation tour anymore.
Yeah.
However, the stipulation means the type of specialty gym or color gym, or we just saw move submission gyms suddenly mattered. Lee, I found myself playing the game yesterday with Hall of Fame Iron Sheik.
Oh, wow.
And doing a 15-turn submission. And I thought, how cool is this that even an older character that I would never get to use in a competitive format is suddenly potentially my best.
Right.
I just dust off of him, and now I'm like, so for me, it's a revitalization of a format that felt ignorable.
Yeah.
I got some statistics, Lee, from some of the people behind the scenes, and they said there are 200,000 coins earnable per day. Did you realize that? If you have promoters and enforcers, and if you play the matches and you complete all of the modes, you arguably would get about 200K a day.
Not counting if you do a cash or coin reset.
Now, the fact that those resets are available mean free to play can actually grind the format and get even more. So here's my take on it, Lee. We've done a lot more for a lot less as free to play grinders. We used to,
True.
it was called farm TP, like play Madrid, for 5 yellow TP about 1,000 times, right? And this feels like far less work, far less time, even with the commensurate costs in the stip shop. I looked at some Sammy shards and I was like, okay, I think those shards are about 2 million coins, but I mean, I can play a few weeks and get guaranteed shards of a really hard to find, or what would have been considered a premium or paywalled superstar. Right now I'm getting those shards for free without spending. Lee, in my estimation, the Gym Mania now might be the greatest thing to ever happen to free-to-play players.
Wow. I don't know if I go that far, but I definitely I agree with most of what you're saying there. I mean, even just those plates. I mean, 2 million of the currency. If you're getting 200,000 a day, that's 10 days. You can get a plate every 10 days. That would be
for having fun with the game, for just playing the game.
Right.
And like I said, I used Hall of Fame Iron Sheik, right? Which is a pretty low bar for entry.
Right. And you probably, because of the way your sub reloads on that, you probably did better than I did, because I used Tech Rock, so I used a very rare character, had a 12-turn sub and then a 4-turn sub, but it wasn't 16-turn sub every single cycle, so you probably actually outscored me with a very free-to-play character where I was using a very, very spendy character. So that's good. It's good.
So,
that's a good understanding of it.
Okay, and let me just ask this. Today's Thursday, August 15th. Early this week, a lot of misinformation and a lot of misunderstanding was circulating in the community as this format was rolled out. So I think a lot of misunderstanding and misinformation went live early this week. I even heard information on the first day that IOW promoters don't even matter, and it's only if you want to try to leaderboard. Was the first piece, and I was like, that's actually the opposite of what the blog says. The blog says that the promoters really matter now, and that the leaderboard is actually more inclusive, I think, of like the top 2,000 in the community. So bigger leaderboard, score boosts. We had some of our friends track their scores and what the promoters did for them. And then the second was that the entourage mattered more. I don't know if that's true. They both feel really important to what I'm trying to accomplish, which is more coin, more resource, higher scores.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, at the very least with the entourage, like I have yet to get 3 stars on hell mode on the final node with any of these. And what gets you even close is your IOW promoter. The entourage I haven't noticed near as much, but I mean, just bringing those in, it's crazy. So I would say personally that I think entourage matters. I think that your promoters matter. I think that anything you can do, because if you're going to get that last node on hell mode, you either have to have like the exact right character, and you have to figure it out. Like Professor is making bank on these videos. They are so well viewed, every one of them, where he's like, hey, don't forget this character. And it's like, oh yeah, I didn't think for Pyros, that Pyro Gym Day, Hall of Fame Rey Mysterio was the answer, but I didn't get that. I was sending out Terry Funk, and I I did well with Terry Funk, but I didn't do Rey Mysterio well with Terry Funk. So the community is also banding around like, who do we use every day now? And there's 6 different colors. Imagine when it gets to red and multi-gems, or green, and well, green and pyros would be super easy. But anyway, when it gets to those, we're all going to be going like, oh my gosh, who in the world is doing this? How do we make this happen? So it's like really getting the community around something again in a let's Sherlock this, kind of a way.
Yeah, and you know what I noticed about the so we talked about promoters, we talked about enforcers. I think I said entourage matters, but that's part of it. The enforcers really matter.
Right.
The people you use in the entourage suddenly matter a lot more. One example would be on yesterday's stipulation tour, I needed to use both Acro Eddie to add more turns to my blue sub move with Tech Cody, and I needed to use Trickster Bray to make my green sub moves go more turns. Right? I haven't used those guys in the entourage in ages. Right? Suddenly Logan Paul mattered more than ever on that stip tour. So I think the value of certain people in the entourage just their stock is rising, right? Is that a good way to say it? People like Showboat Dolph that can generate more gems in these Gem Mania, they matter more than ever. Titus O'Neil increasing the number of black gems you can create. So like I don't know. I think the market is in flux, if you will, with some of these entourage members.
Yeah. And it just goes to show, like, when you're looking at talent up plans and things like that, I've said it for a while, and I know it's a whale comment, it's a whatever, but you're smart to work up your lower people. If they have anything close to an entourage ability that might ever be used, it's smart to work them all towards at least 5 gold. Really, I mean, even 6-star bronze, because you just never know. Like, don't leave anybody who has a good entourage ability on your roster. Now, if it's somebody that you're like, 15% more kick out, okay, forget that person. They're not going to do anything for you. But if there's generate gems, modify gems, if there is, do more damage, if there is, get more MP, any of those things that are within a shouting distance of might be a good entourage ability, like, get that person up to 6-star. And I know that's a big investment. I know, et cetera, et cetera. I know that's not an easy thing to do. But if you start working on them, I usually just have on my little sheet. In fact, I can pull it up here real quick. My priority and plans, for some reason it's all mixed up a little bit right now, but if you scroll down under the ones that are like my important ones I want to do for fun and for like me, there's a thing that says coaches and trainers, and I've got ones right there that I need to take up, and suddenly guys like Boogeyman and Afa are on there that weren't on there 2 months ago because I just ignored them. I didn't care about them. Well, now I've got to go back and reinvest in Boogeyman and Afa.
I think those doggone Dudley boys that they reworked with new entourage abilities are going to need to be on that list as well. Because what happens when we see, the protect gems matter? What happens when we see, So
that's such a good shout out.
Not only did those critical entourage members really matter, that maybe we didn't view them as critical before. Another thing that matters is that list. We'll have to go back in the archives and see which 27, 26 superstars did they rework in that last cycle to give create gem moves. Like a Brie Bella example. Brie Bella became a blast gem. Yeah. Basically in this format, Brie is maybe like a blast gem goddess, right? For Stip 2, where we wouldn't take her into a feud. Lee, I'm wondering if... Can I just dare to dream a minute? Does the reworking of the Stip Tour mean we have a new category or a new criteria to evaluate when we do our power rankings and versatility. And we start asking,
we already have
do they help, versatility, do they help with stip tours? Do they do something unique? And do they amplify something, in a mode? Entourage and versatility, I think, really, really matters in this new format.
Well, I think for the versatility category of our power ratings, we already had that in there, thank goodness. Do they create a special gym for... Now, we had done it for other modes, but it still holds for this. However, where it does, I think it will change things, and we can get Judge Baby Ice in on this, is that entourage ability. Because, suddenly some of those entourage people, like your Titus O'Neil, who we would say that's a niche trainer ability, so it's a 2 or it's a 3, suddenly becomes, for that mode, absolutely vital. So, yeah.
Right. And if we're seeing the need weekly for that, for the entourage. So Titus Worldwide suddenly matters more than ever, right? Presumably that we're going to need to spam black gems in this mode. Anything else to say about Gym Mania? We can move on to our next segment.
Oh, I mean, our next segment is really good. I just know it's still early days. We'll still be figuring this out, obviously. But I know people already who have were a few shards short of Bret Hart and grind only, not through spending, were able to get not only an S tier character but one of the top coaches in the game because of this Gym Mania refresh. So I get that people are freaking out over the price values of it. All of us would always like everything to be cheaper. I get that. But what Scopely's trying to do is get a balance of reward for challenge. And for me, the challenge is high enough, but not so high, where I feel incentivized to try and figure it out and get there, as opposed to disincentivized because it's so hard and so outlandish.
And Lee, if it's $200K a day, my brother, that's $1 million a week. Right? That's a million coins a week. Yeah. So if the Sammy shards are 2 million, ask myself, is it worth it? Yeah. To me, the answer is yes. I'm already playing the game. I'm already having fun with the game. Now, here's our segue line. Faction communication matters more than ever because you may not be able to figure out that stipulation. You may not know who does... breaks blue and does max sub turns, right? Maybe that's not in your wheelhouse, but communicating with your faction matters in a new way, in a fresh way. So, Lee, as we talk about the subject of faction communication and faction life, which is one of my favorite things to talk about on our show, I came up with an idea for a segment called What Your Faction Mates Aren't Telling You.
I love it.
Right? Do you think there are things happening in our faction? People have thoughts and feelings about us that they've never shared with us?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Kermit the Frog, sip my tea.
Right.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you're in a faction... people have thoughts and feelings about you.
Yes.
Period. Yes. Now, those thoughts might be good. Those feelings might be good. And they might be good one day and bad the next, right? Based on moment-to-moment interactions and faction communication. So, Lee, I would love to hear your response and if any of these, if you have pushback to them, or if you think they are important or not, if you have some to add, this can be a growing list. But the first thing I thought of that your faction mates aren't telling you, and this pertains to us all, so we're not singling anyone out here in the community. This is me, this is you, this is us, right? First thing your faction mates aren't telling you, let me just elephant in the room, let's get it out of the way. When you're consistently in the bottom of the scoreboard, they're considering kicking you from the faction.
Yeah. Yep, agreed. Every faction, it doesn't matter if you're top 100, top 10, bottom 1,000, I am still in the leadership chat for our former faction, and so I see even weekly. Hey, this person isn't getting their stars. Should we kick them? This person wasn't active in this event. Should we kick them? They're having those conversations. It's not like, man, they don't like that person. I mean, if you're not active in a chat, hopefully on Discord, then they don't even know you. Like if you're not sending out like, hey, sorry, I had this 1 week where I had to go to the doctor and whatever, they're just kind of, going, hey, well, this person is consistently on the bottom of the rankings. I guess maybe they don't want to be here, and maybe that sounds cold if you're super trying, and I get that, but the reality is, if you're trying, if you're playing, if you're grinding, you should be able even to get to the bottom of the middle of the pack. Like, to be on the very bottom, you got to be just not doing it, not playing, not whatever. So
good point. I don't think I had this word. You inspired me to think this word, right? Inactivity is probably the thing that will incite the most thoughts and feelings about you, right? Simply being inactive. They'll probably have conversations about you. And so, the
higher up you go in the faction chain, the less inactivity is accepted. And if you get into the top few factions, I mean, it might be a day of inactivity and you're out or something like that. But most of them, just to clarify so it doesn't sound like we're saying this game should be your life, because it's a hobby, it's a side project. Most of them, if you use the absences chat room in your faction server and say, hey, I've got something going on today, I can't play, most of them are like, cool, we got you. But if you are just totally ghosting, if you're not chatting, if you're not letting people know, if you're not playing, if you don't get your stars, there's not a lot of like, do you ever watch America's Got Talent?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. There's not a lot of reason for your faction leaders to not hit that big red button and go, all right, you're going to hit your button? You're going to hit your button? All right, gone. Get them out of here.
Yeah, and I think communication is the cure for inactivity, right? If you hey, I've got a major surgery, I'm going to have an appendectomy this year, and next week, I'm going to go through surgery. I'm going to be in recovery. I'm going to be sedated. I'm going to be on pain meds. I am going away to rehab. I'm going on a cruise. I've heard it all. I've seen it all over the 7+ years we've been playing this game, and communication is key, right? Yeah. Just let them know what you're doing or what you're not doing. You ready for another one, Lee?
I'm ready.
Now, again, I'm saying even in casual factions, right? If you're consistently a bottom, they're considered kicking you. The next one, when you don't push for 1%, they're kind of resentful. Even if your faction has no minimums, if they see that you've quit during a contest, and yet you're still in the chat, you're still on Discord, you're still posting GIFs and memes and jokes, and like they know you're on your phone, they know you're there, and you're arguing over which superstar is better, which striker is better, right? And if you're not pushing for that 1% is kind of the magic number, right? Because if 100 people do 1% of a contest, 100% of the contest is maxed.
Yep.
And so if you are active and not pushing, I think they can grow resentful. You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, this kind of goes back to, it's not just like don't be the very bottom person on your faction, but we have seen in our faction, for example, where there would be boss battle things, and the people who hop in, get their 4 done, and then hop right out and do nothing else to help anyone. That's kind of the same sentiment where, the rest of them, like I am often one who I will spend an extra hour or two playing after I've gotten all my things done during a big event like that to make sure everybody else is. And then when you see somebody who's like, hey, I hopped in, got my 4 and hopped out, great weekend, it was easy for me, I'm like, you're a jerk. Like, you're not my team player here that I need going. And similarly, if we look at the previous faction that we were in, the reason that faction is not in the top 100 is because about 30 or 40 people carry the entire weight, and they do amazing. They're great. They chat. They have communication. Blah blah blah. But the other part of it, like, it's like, hey, is this person hopping on? Is this person going to do anything? Like, just imagine what that faction could do if 70 or 80 people were getting their 1 to 1.5%. If you're not doing your 1%, 1% is kind of your bare minimum, and it's achievable. It's not a huge, 1% of anything. Like, if I walked up and said, hey, I'm giving you a 1% pay cut, you'd be like, how dare you? But if I said, hey, I'm giving you a 1% raise, you'd be like, that's nothing. What are you talking about? You're giving me a 1% raise, right?
That cost of living isn't even 1%, buddy. Right.
Right.
So, Lee, so someone wrote in the chat, where is it at? 1% per person, period. No matter if your faction has already maxed out or not, carry your own weight. That's not my words. I think that's kind of interesting. Yeah. Because even if they've maxed, you should show that you are a contributor of that max. Now, we're assuming, the assumption is that you play this game. If you listen to this show, you probably play this game more than casual, right? If you listen to us, if you're listening to a podcast or watching us on YouTube, you probably are invested more than just casual nominal play, right? And so that's where I would say, like, well, like if you hit 20 million and contribute to the faction, awesome. If you hit 50 million in your feud and you contribute to your own, max and scores and all that, like, even better. But if you shut it down and they know your roster is sizable, right, and they know you don't have any, conflict of schedule, right, eventually they're gonna be like, bro, why aren't you helping us push up the ranks? Why aren't you helping us get better faction rewards? Why aren't you helping us? You're in it for you, right?
We're not saying you have to play this game 17 hours a day. That's not it. But if you hop in for 2 seconds, get you done, and move on, you are not a team player. And again, the topic is what your faction isn't telling you. They're thinking about, how dare that person be so self-centered that they're not doing, like, okay, so this would be a similar example but different. Won't call out names, but we had, and I think they left, we had a person in our faction who had a massive roster. Just like,
so now I know it's not me. I know. Right. Now I'm off the hook.
Now you're off the hook. Yeah. It was beyond mine by quite a bit. And yet,
tell a story about me, isn't he?
Right. What's up, Bad Bruce? Yet, so this person consistently took a half hour in feud, which in some factions that's not a big deal, but in our faction, like, you need to be done in about 10 minutes, 8 to 12 minutes is kind of that sweet spot. But here's the thing, like, that's not what upset everybody. What upset everybody was the fact that everyone tried to message this person who was a top feuder and say, hey, how can we help? You've got the firepower. You should be able to do this like that. How can we help coach you? And that person never, ever, ever responded, never did anything. And so it got to a point where, similar to this 1% kind of a deal, like, we were just looking like, this person isn't in it for the team. This person is just there. So when they hopped into the feud line lobby, like, they'd sit there because people started to know. Like, and this is kind of a segue to another one that you're going to talk about.
Are trying to guess who it is, Lee. You should move on.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, somebody else. It was in a different faction on another game in another alternate universe.
Kidding. We were playing Marvel Strike Force.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Hey Lee, I'm going to add one to the list, but it's a subsidiary of what you just said. If
Ooh.
you're a slow feuder, they dread seeing your name in the queue.
Yep.
They avoid you. If you're a slow feuder, you are being avoided. Your faction is talking about how slow you are.
Yep.
And they are yes and amening and all going, dude, it's kind of like having BO in the game shop. We used to go play Magic, like for real. We used to go play Magic in the hobby shop, and there were some guys that just had bad BO.
Yeah.
And it didn't take long to figure out who that was, and it didn't take long to figure out that nobody wanted to play with that person, and that person would usually sit alone and look at their cards when no one else would go get a game with them.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the slow feuder. That's the slow feuder.
It's not that we don't love you.
They don't know it, but they don't know that they stink. They don't know they stink. And no one ever tells them. That's why this segment's called What Your Faction's Not Telling You. They're not telling you that, bro, woo, I'm moving away from you because you're slow.
Well, and let me add to that. What they're not telling you is if you just admitted the problem and said, hey, I see that you cleared your line in 8 minutes. It's going to take me 25. What are you doing different? Not only would I respond to that and help coach you, also myself and a few others who aren't chasing leaderboards usually, if you were to hop in, like we have a guy in our faction who said a couple of feuds ago, he's like, hey, this is going to be a really slow feud for me. Is anyone willing to partner? And we had several people who were like, yeah, I'll partner with you. That's fine. Like there are people in your faction who don't mind you taking the extra time if you communicate. If you're just self-aware enough to say, hey, this is hard for me. Yeah, I know. I'm trying not to step on it.
Somebody just wrote in the chat, I would rather someone tell me instead of them talking behind my back.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
We all would prefer that. But are we capable of hearing that? Lee just said the word self-awareness. That's gonna be the last one that we get to.
Oh, okay. I'm really stepping ahead then.
Man, I've got a good one for you, Lee.
Okay.
Oof. When you post political or racial or religious or sexual or et cetera, social issues, stuff in the chat, it makes us all uncomfortable because we don't know how to respond.
Yeah, well, let me just say political correctness can go too far. That's something we can all admit. However, self-awareness can never go too far, right? Read the room is kind of the phrase we use. But yeah, like there's a lot of servers, ours included, that say no posting politics, no talking religion, because why? What happens is people get entrenched in an ideology or their own position, and they start overlooking the person or persons in the room and just start saying these crazy things. We have had servers that we've been a part of and servers that got shut down because this kind of thing started to dominate. And for you, you're like, yeah, this is okay. Let's take I know a lot of our listeners aren't American, but let's pinpoint and stab the Americans for a second here. We are Americans. We have freedom of speech. We could say whatever we want. Yeah, you can say whatever you want, but you don't recognize the impact of the words of others you hurt, or even just like I got a text message from one of my buddies the other day. I'm looking at a additional line of work to add in, not because I spend too much on the game, don't say it, but additional line of work to add in for my family. And it's one that
you could do more pulls, right? You're looking at getting a side job just
so I could do more pulls. Yes, that's wow. No,
I
anyway,
kid. I joke when it hurts. When my heart hurts, I'm funnies.
Right, right. Well, and I had one of my friends message me because this line of work has a line of jokes that you could throw at it that are a little sensitive, and I showed my wife one of them that came across from like one of my best friends from way back when. It was like, okay, there was no emotional intelligence in that comment at all. Like
Right.
it just like, even though I absolutely love this person, it was like, I'm just not going to respond to that. But what it does, this is what it does. This is what your actions do when you post racist, when you post, go down the chain, religious, politics, etc. It shuts the right people down.
Polarizing content. No, I'm just saying, if it's discriminatory or if it's polarizing,
Right.
it's going to make people uncomfortable. It's just going to make, whether you're passionate about the issue or not.
Right.
Whether you vote for that party or that candidate and you've made it your avatar and you're, sending message, it's just like, I don't know how to respond to that. Because if I agree with you, then I know everyone else is upset at you, and then I don't want them upset at me. And if I disagree with you, I don't want you upset at me. And now we're at battle in the Discord, and they shut down the chat because of it, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And it makes the right, helpful people shut up, and it makes the people who want a temporary spotlight or want to prove their point speak up. So the right people shut up and the wrong people speak up when you post that kind of content. That's
profound.
That's kind of a thing. So
that's really profoundly. And I would say this. You may be able to exercise freedom of speech, but you will never be free of consequences from your speech.
Right.
Right. You're free to post it. Post it. There will be consequences.
Yep.
And your faction will all roll their eyes or DM one another or talk about it in voice chat. They will all. It's like the guy who farted in the car, right? And they're like, we are trapped in this vessel with this stench and we cannot get out. And we hate this person.
Well, we don't really hate, but they're upset at the choices that person has made.
Well, I think sometimes hate is the wrong word.
Right.
Right.
But it gets thrown around.
You don't have anything kind to say to that person in the moment. You know, anything kind to say.
That's right.
My head's out the window and I'm gagging, dude. I'm not laughing about this. You're sick. You're gross.
Right. And it's not about limiting the expression of speech. It's about being self-aware and self-limiting. Like, those kind of conversations can happen. Like, you and I can talk about politics and religion to each other because we have a depth of friendship, relationship. We have something where we're interacting one-on-one. But if we're just throwing that out there in a random message board, like, one, you're much more likely to be misunderstood. Two, the person isn't going to know you and your heart. So you might say something and say it with the right heart, but the wrong words. And the other person goes, I know what you meant to say. I trust you. I got you. Whereas, the person who we don't know and we don't know that their heart is good, but they just posted something inflammatory. We're like, whoa. Back it down, sucker. Back it down. Also, you made me think of a dad joke.
Let's hear it. Hopefully it's not offensive.
He who farts in church must sit in his own pew.
Terrible.
I know it's bad. It's bad.
Okay, so Lee, here's the equivalent. Remember in the old days when we'd go to the mall and we'd eat at the food court?
Wow.
Right? Remember those days? Okay,
the 80s.
Well, and even in college, right? We like Crossroads Mall. You go to Crossroads Mall, you go to the Dollar Theater, you eat in the food court. So if you and I were sitting in the food court of the mall, and you said, hey, did you see the news, right? You see this controversial story between Israel and Palestine? I would say, hey, let's not do that here. Let's talk about that in the car ride on the way home. Right? Because we're in public. Right? People are, I don't want to share even I don't want to share my thoughts and feelings and opinions on that in the mall food court, because there's going to be people that are listening into our conversation. This is a triggering subject. This is a very triggering subject. So
Right.
let's not do that here. Right. And that's your faction chat. There's going to be, you might be having a one-on-one with somebody, and, and you make an offhanded remark that's sexist. Right. And 99 other people read it and go, and they just want to
right. And 3 people laugh, so you keep going. But you don't recognize that 97 of them are just going like, oh, dude, really? Did you bring that into my day?
Right. And opinions aren't wrong.
Right.
Some are wrong. Some are racist and bigoted and hateful and wrong. But our server, for example, we have like a music chat. Like, it's not wrong for you to like Nickelback, Lee. I mean, you're world's largest Nickelback fan I know.
I'm out.
You're the number one Nickelbacker in all of Colorado, and so that doesn't cause me great offense. That just kind of is whimsical. Makes me. You're doing like the Muppets, like peek around like you're a pup. Anyway, for example, let's go on to the next one. I think we've mentioned that one. Okay, now this is going to hit close to home for you. I want you. When you don't read the blog, or you don't know what's happening in the game, and you ask last minute questions, your faction mates are going to think you're unprepared.
Yeah.
You're a blog reader, Lee. You make videos about the blogs and the content and the contest and the weekend contest walkthroughs and how to use how to a preview of a superstar that might be required for the contest.
Right.
And then when I pop in and say, what is this? It's a female feud.
Right.
Right.
Wait, we're using ladies for this? What kind of backwoods game is that? No.
Right.
Yeah. No, you're right, though. I mean, so here's the thing. I don't expect, and no one in your faction should expect everyone to know everything about the game. I mean, the fact that we know what we know is why we have the platform we have, but that's not like what everybody should be doing. However, there are some basic things that you ought to, like if you're going in, we've seen this happen where 5 minutes after Coach Rick posts, blog update is in the announcement section here, and then someone else goes, so what's going on this weekend? Like 5 minutes later, and you're like, really? Like, check out this channel. We just posted it. Oh yeah, I don't want to read that. Somebody else just tell me. Like, the attitude that in this is, again, that arrogant, like me-centered attitude of like, yeah, I don't want to have to do that work. You just tell me. You know where it hits me? And I'm not calling anybody specifically out or whatever, but I'll get DMs oftentimes where people are like, hey, how do you run X person? And I will take my time to go and find our video and post it real quick to them. And they're like, yeah, can't you just tell me? I don't want to have to watch a 3-minute video. And I'm like, we're done. Like, you realize how disrespectful of my time that is? Like, first of all, I should have just told you we have a video on that. Go find it. And I'm not being arrogant or rude or anything, but literally, like, okay, so last Friday, I spent 11 hours making videos. 11 hours on my day off in my free time. And so for somebody to go, can't you just tell me? I don't want to have to watch something. That's like, what you do doesn't matter. But what I do is the only thing that matters. And extension of that would be in the Discord servers and chats when Coach Rick takes their time to post, here's the screenshots from Brofessor's blog read, check them out. And then somebody goes, cool, what's going on? Like, can you just tell me? Just tell me.
Yeah. So in one sense, it's like mama bird syndrome, right? They want you to chew the food for them and regurgitate it into their mouth so that because they're not capable enough of chewing their own food like a baby, right? Like a baby. So what they're saying is, mama bird, right? Will you chew the worm for me and then spit it into my mouth so that I don't have to do anything. Now, here's the problem, or here's the solution. Let me give you the solution.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's be solution-oriented leaders. I like that.
The solution to you, in the same amount of time, when you asked, what do I do? What's going on in the game? How do I do this? You could have already looked up the solution. Prepare. Yeah. Click the blog. Google WWE Champions blog and read about you don't even have to do that. You can click in the game now in the news section.
Yeah.
Click the news and read it right. It's linked in the game. You don't even have to Google it's called What's Up.
What's up?
If you're asking the question, they copyright infringed on us. We say what's up. Just kidding.
Yeah, right. That's
rather than write in Discord, what do I do? Go to the news section of the game, my bro, and find out what's up. Just prepare. Prepare instead of asking those that have prepared to platter up the information for you. And somebody wrote in the chat, it's just simply being lazy. It's just simply being lazy. I think so. But what we're talking about, right? And then so I say, hey, I'm sorry I DM'd you about that Shinsuke build. Here's the thing, Lee. These are all, and we're still going to get there. We're going to get there in a little bit.
Right.
These are all examples of low self-awareness.
Right.
Not aware that you're causing frustration in your faction.
Right. And all you have to do is look for a minute. You find it. And if you don't, it's perfectly okay to then go in the chat and say, hey, guys, I honestly looked for this and didn't see it. Right. Who's the gym stip promoter today? And if you start like that, then it's like, okay, cool. Well, I don't mind helping that person because they're not just going like, feed me, like they just missed something. That's a very different story. Also, I wonder if, we do like today, we'll do our WCW weekend contest walkthrough. I wonder if like we should start doing the WCW TLDR and like do a 1 minute short, like here's everything you need to know this weekend and like try to talk fast like the Micro Machines guy and be like, okay, it's going to be this. Okay, bye. Go.
Oh my gosh, that's what the thumbnail is for, right? Look at the name of the event and whose picture we're featuring on it. Hey, here's kind of a 1A 1B situation with this point. Here's another one, it drives your faction. What your faction mates aren't telling you, what's driving them crazy, is when you pull a new superstar and you ask, are they any good? Are they any good? Right? And first of all, your faction mates are bitter and a little jealous that you just pulled that, okay?
Right.
And that you don't even know the value of what you now own. They're just like rolling their eyes like, dude, you just pulled Muscle Man Bray and you're asking, any good? Is he any good? So either you're trolling us and bragging or you're really that clueless and you don't deserve that on your roster. That's what your faction mates are thinking of you when you
hear your jealousy as you say these words. Like,
I know. Is he any good? Is he any good? It's like, you shouldn't even have him.
Oh, I don't know that I need to add anything on that. I think, what's your 1B?
No, that was 1B to not reading the blog, not preparing for the game, not knowing the superstars. Like, go to YouTube and type in Muscle Man Bray Wyatt and watch hours of content that Merrick's and DJ and Professor and Cesaro and Goldie and Benny Smaja and Lee and I and Champions Chat. Did I leave anybody out? Tell me if I left anybody out.
I'm sure we did. I'm sorry if we did.
Davey D Game. Watch the videos that we make because we do it as a service to the community to answer your question. Are they good? Our power ratings answer, are they good? Take it, Lee.
I even though it is to the detriment of people watching our content, just to be helpful, I put the power rating on the thumbnail. Now, granted, that's only from like the new characters that we've got on there. We haven't been doing it long enough to have a huge backlog. I totally get that. But if it's a somewhat new character, you can just type into YouTube Champions Chat power rating and see that Mae Young is a 20 out of 25 and go, oh, okay, well then she's probably decent. You could see that we re-rated Muda, and Muda is now a 24 out of 25 for the gold meta that we have right now. You could see that and go, oh, okay, they must be one of the best characters in the game. Like that. You don't even have to watch the video, but please watch the video, because otherwise we don't get the things that we need to keep making them. So, just saying.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay, let me go to another one. Lee kind of mentioned this earlier, but I want to put it in explicit terms. What your faction mates aren't telling you: when you send an unsolicited DM to a faction mate, it's annoying.
What do you mean by unsolicited?
They didn't ask you to DM them. They didn't say, hey, shoot me a message and ask how to run Muscle Man Bray that you just pulled. They didn't ask for that. They didn't ask you to DM them. No, here's the thing. If we're talking about the game, let's do it in the open chat so that our whole faction can benefit from this information.
Oh, I see.
I don't want to send you secrets, bro. I think if you have that question, like, who do I use on today's Stip Tour? DM. Well, don't you think 99 other guys are asking that question right now in the faction chat? Don't DM me. I didn't ask you to DM me, right? Are we friends? Are we talking about, hey, when you said that on the show this week, that was funny. DM me that. Yeah. That's cool. That's kind. That's generous. That's friendly, right? But don't say, how much did you spend on that contest? Why are you third on the leaderboard? Like, don't. What? That's annoying and kind of offensive too. For the record.
For the record, I don't know. I guess I like DMs, but not to where everybody can message me everything, because I don't have bandwidth for that. But I mean, I appreciate a DM. But yeah, you're right. It depends on the content of it. If it's something that should have and could have been handled in open chat, then why are you messaging me? But if it's something more like personal, more like, hey, I just should chat with you or something like that. Sure. Yeah, I could see that.
Listen, DM me like if it's a personal thing. Hey, my family life is. Hey, man, you talk a lot about mental health on your show. You have any resources for this? Yeah, DM me for that. Right? Yeah. Don't DM me to ask me for a carry in boss battle. Yeah. Put that in the chat. Don't DM me and ask me to be my feud partner. Put that in the chat. Don't DM me and ask me, how do you what plate do you put on Tech Becky? Like, don't DM. Don't DM any of your faction mates for that information that could benefit all of your faction mates. Right. Write it in the public chat.
Or as ThunderQ has pointed out, people are saying use your coaching room. That's why it's there. Yes. So there you go. And that is also just a conversational help. Like, if you're blowing up open chat with things when there is a special room in Discord for that, then that is also another faux pas. So if your faction, or if you're like Champions Chat server, we have a coaching room. So whenever somebody goes into open chat and says, hey, how do you use Bodacious Becky? It's like, please go to the coaching room. Like, that's, we do want to keep those the thing I tell my team all the time, why I love Discord, threaded conversations. Because I can go to the coaching room and know I'm going to be talking about how you run this person. But open chat is, hey, do you see this going on? Hey, what's happening here? Brag room, there are people who don't use the brag rooms in servers, and it's kind of, it goes back to that person, is they any good kind of thing. It's kind of a social faux pas, so to speak, of like, hey, look who I got. But then, I don't go to the main chat to see the brags, because oftentimes the brags make me have FOMO. They make me spend more than I wanted to. And so there are times I intentionally avoid the brag room because I'm trying not to have that content in my face. So the threaded conversations are important too. So
that's right. And if you have a brag room on your server, and you struggle at all with addiction or with spending or with FOMO or with just general resentment of the game, stay out of that room, mute it, block it, unfollow it, do whatever you need to do.
Yep.
Right? Lee, I've got another of what your faction mates aren't telling you. This one's a little more general, but when you're unwilling to consider what it might take for us to get to the next level, we're already starting to leave you behind.
Oh, explain that.
So let's say our faction is currently outside the top 100, and we're having conversations about, guys, if we just put a little energy here and there and did this strategy and that strategy, we'll be in the top 100. And you skip over the conversation. Maybe you, in your heart, go, I don't want to do that. It's just a game. It's just casual. I don't want to, I don't want to play that much. Right. So your faction's already starting to leave you behind because they're moving in a direction towards a goal. They set the goal. They're reaching for the goal. And if you're not reaching for the goal as well, they may not be the right faction for you. And they already know that. They're already thinking that, well, hey, Lee's not reaching for that goal with us. We're trying to get into the top 100, but he's not. His score doesn't reflect that, right? This is what I'm saying, right? Here's another example. If a faction sets a goal of, we're all going to have 4 6-star gold females so that we can get 400 points in female boss battles.
Right.
And if you say, well, I just don't value my female roster, I don't want to take up somebody just for boss battles.
Were you watching my video of who I took up this week? Is that why you're calling that out?
So you see what I'm saying? How they're going to leave you behind, and they're going to know that you're not going with them.
Yeah, I mean, again, it comes back to communication and expectations in this case, but you're using a real world example. Toxic Mafia sent out a thing a couple of weeks ago or a month or two ago and said, hey, one of our goals is to make sure we can all hit 400 in every boss battle. So over the next 3 months, like it wasn't like do this today or you're gone. It was like over the next...
Yeah, 4+ months was the goal.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So over the next 4, that is incredibly realistic to say over the next 4 months, like if you want to be in a top 10, oftentimes in the top 10 faction like we are, that's not unrealistic and it's very fair. And quite honestly, there are factions who would say, if you don't do that tomorrow, you're gone. And we're saying, hey, you got 4 months to do that. If you then turn around and say, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I don't value my female roster. Again, what you're saying is I am more important than we. Me is more important than we. And that's the poison. That's the attitude of like, oof, like that. Let's not do that.
Yeah. And they may not tell you, again, they may not say it to your face, but maybe the roster coaches or the leaders are going, I don't think they're going to make the journey with us. They may be subject to change. Their place in this faction may be subject to change.
Wow.
Right? Okay, Lee, we've danced all around this subject. It's time for the big one. Ready? When you display low self-awareness or low emotional intelligence. Now, let me subdefine it before I finish the question. When you display low self-awareness, low emotional intelligence, meaning ego, bragging, trying to burst other people's bubbles, overreaction, being easily offended, being a know-it-all, a smarty pants, getting salty during conversations. So when you display low emotional intelligence or low self-awareness, your faction mates think you're toxic.
Wow. Yes. So can I expose my guts on the table here for a moment, Rusty?
Yeah. Let us have it, man.
I come from a history of low emotional intelligence. And about 15 years ago, somebody pointed this out, and lovingly, to where I could hear it because me was not listening to we, pointed out like, hey, you're often thinking about you. You're not really reading the room. You don't know when somebody is having an issue, like you have no ability to look at them and go, "Oh, you're going through something, aren't you?" Because you are focused in on you. And I discovered Daniel Goleman's books, Emotional Intelligence and etc. But what they've proven is that your EQ, your emotional intelligence or emotional quotient, is a better predictor of personal and familial success than your IQ. That's your brain, right? So oftentimes, I would be the person in the room who could outthink or maneuver, but I was the one who people are like, get out of here. You are not reading the room. You don't pay attention. You are so and they wouldn't tell me this, but they needed to. You are so self-absorbed. You don't even know what's going on with other people around you. And then I got married and started hearing words like, it's not what you said, it's the way that you said it. And I was so low EQ that I was like, screw that. Listen to what I said. Forget it doesn't matter how I said it. It's what I said. And then I started, learning what it means to be a respectable human being, and figured out no, like we have conversations, my wife and I, about your impact versus your intent. Like you meant for that to come across this way, but because your facial cues were all so angry looking, I took it as this. And I'm like, well, it's not on me. It's not on me to be the arbitrator of how you hear me. Pause. David E., pause. The reality is, if I want to succeed in a relational conversation, it is on me. I mean, how many studies have they shown where they say that what you say is 10 to 20% of what is actually picked up? And how you say your nonverbals are 70% of communication. Things like that you're just not even aware of, and it's hard in chat, it's hard in Discord. But if there's one thing you could do to improve your relationships, your sex life, your dating sphere, your champion's success in game with your faction, pick up a book on emotional intelligence. Pick up a personality inventory. Like for my wife and I, the Enneagram became a hugely helpful tool. And it's just a tool. It's not a way of life. But I came home one day. This was just prior to the pandemic. I came home one day and she is sitting on our bed bawling. And I'm like, what is wrong? Like I'm sitting there, like the protector in me is like, okay, who do I have to go kill? Like, what do I have to do to fight this monster for you? And she just looked at me. She goes, no. I've never understood myself better than this right here.
Wow.
I need you to read this. And ironically, you had actually told me, hey, you should read The Road Back to You, Lee. And then I come home, my wife's reading it, bawling. And at that point, I finally said, okay, Rusty said it. My wife is asking. So I started reading through that. And what it did is it gave us a shared language of understanding. So my wife is a 9 on the Enneagram. There are certain things. There are 9 normal personalities, not just one. There are multiple normal things throughout human experience. And when I started going, oh, the way she sees things is well within the range of normal. It's just different from me. It started to give us language to say, hey, here's how we achieve this goal together. One last example, and then I'll give you I'll turn the mic over. But we were working on a building project where I work, and 3 of us were kind of like, I was the guy in charge overall, but 3 of us were kind of the ones, the cooks in the kitchen, so to speak. And we had all gone through the Enneagram as a staff, so we had this language ready, but it just gave us understanding. So the guy who was second in charge over this project, just under me, came to me and said, Lee, as a 1 on the Enneagram, I want this project done, and I want it done right. And I looked at him and said, Ron, as a 3 on the Enneagram, I want this project done, and I want it done not wrong. Do you
Right.
see the difference in those two things? And then the third guy came in, he goes, hey, as an 8 on the Enneagram, I want this project done, and I want it done efficiently. So that gave us language within each other to say, okay, we're all trying to get this project done. Because sometimes there's misunderstandings and you go, do they even want this goal to happen? But what we came to understand is in our own personalities, I want it done, but it doesn't have to be like so pinpoint accurate that there's not even a pixel that's off, right? But that's what the person who was working directly under me expected or wanted. So I needed to clarify for our own sake, hey, for me, the guy who's ultimately in charge of this project, as long as it's not done wrong, I'm okay with where we're at here. I don't want it to be so precise that we are literally spending 7 hours on one doorknob, right? However,
Right.
it can't be done sloppy. It can't be done wrong. And then the third person in the conversation going, well, wait a second. I want it done, but I want to make sure it's done efficiently. And once we understood where each other were coming from, not only did it give us language that was helpful, it also gave us understanding with one another so that when the one on the Enneagram said, hey, this needs to be redone, it's not right, we could come to the table and not go, oh gosh, what does that do? He's just being a Karen or whatever. He's just being picky. No. He cares about it being done excellently, and that is a valuable thing to bring to the team. Let's not ignore that. Also, let's help him keep in mind that, hey, your direct report, the person you're reporting to, isn't saying this has to be done so precisely that it takes us 7 hours to do something that should take 7 minutes, right? There's a difference between excellence and obsession. And so we were able to talk through that. And guess what? We made it through that project, and all of us have our hair, sort of.
Hey, yeah, what's left of it, right?
Right.
So the book that Lee referenced, let me just give a shout out to that. Like if you want to download it or check it out from the library or go buy it from a bookseller, it's called The Road Back to You. And the authors are Cron and Stabile, or Cron and Stabile.
Ian Morgan Cron
And Suzanne Stabile. Wonderful book, easy read, fun read. You'll know you found your personality type when you feel embarrassed or humiliated.
Yeah.
When it gets hard to read, you're like, oh, here I am.
Yeah.
That's me. It's almost like you feel like you've been pantsed in public. You're like, oh, they know. They know it's me. I'm vulnerable. Yeah. So Lee, Maya Angelou, the great American poet, she said this, and I think this is a great way to summarize all of this conversation. And Lee, we actually came up with 10 things your faction mates aren't telling you. So that'll
work as a gotcha.
This will be the name of this episode, is 10 things your faction mates aren't telling you.
Nice.
Here's what Maya Angelou said. I've learned that people will forget about what you said. People will forget about what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I think that's what your faction mates aren't telling you, is how you made them feel.
Yep.
Oftentimes we're not in touch with our emotions. Oftentimes we're not in touch with our thoughts and feelings. And yet we just continue the journey, and we don't realize we've left a body count behind us, that we've just hurt others, we've offended others, we've shredded their confidence, we've taken advantage of their trust, we've pushed them away, and yet we're wondering why wouldn't anyone tell me this?
Right.
Why didn't anyone tell me? Right. So hopefully this episode has helped, and we can cover this topic more in future episodes. But I think for now, we'll shift gears and go to our.
Can I say one thing with it real quick, though?
Yeah,
sorry. So for the person who lives in their head and not their heart, that's me. What I needed to understand for it was, if I want to accomplish the goal, because I'm a 3, that's what I care about, is getting the goal done, right? If I want to accomplish the goal, I need to learn to pay attention to others. It's holding me back, and it's holding others back. So if you're on the self-centered side, like I tend to be, recognizing like, hey, it's not just hurting others, it's actually lowering my lid as well for me not doing this. Maybe that's the kick or the push that you need to then start, because now I care a lot more about others, but it started with selfish motives, and I'll just call it out and admit it. It started with my brain going, I can beat this, I can understand that, and it wasn't until I put it in the context of what's in it for me, because that's honestly what people care about, whether they're, whatever we want to say, self-centered, scale, or very altruistic. Ultimately, people still say, what's in it for me? What's in it for you is when the community wins, you win. And when the community wins, we win. And hopefully you can, even if you start with a self-centered spot, you can use that to move towards a place where you actually do care more about others and care more about understanding them. But yeah, anyway, all right, I'm done. I can talk about
that's
this for a
great.
while.
Perfect. You know who's not considering how their actions make other people feel? In the world of professional wrestling, everyone. Have you noticed that they only solve their problems through violence? Have you ever noticed that they no longer solve their problems in the ring, but now the backstage is where they sneak attack one another during interviews consistently? It feels like there's a backstage attack nearly 4 different times on every WWE TV show. Can we please dial that back, Hunter? Can we just like it now, it can be special, right? The way that Drew absolutely destroyed Charles Matthew Punk backstage, and then the garage door opened and he left his unconscious body at the bottom of the ramp. That was incredible. The way Final Boss Rock sneak attacked Cody outside in the rain at the bus. That was epic. But for every show to have multiple on mic interviews that get interrupted, it's like, can we just not have a promo anymore without a sucker punch?
Right.
Lee, you got any thoughts on that? Are they overusing it?
Well, so this was helpful to me because I had family over on Monday, so I got to watch Raw like out of the corner of my eye a little bit, but didn't get to actually watch Raw. And one of the families here at work was like, "Hey, did you see Raw? We actually counted. There were 2 matches in 2 hours. The rest of it was backstage promos and stuff." And I was like, "Oh wow, that sounds like that's a problem when you're." Bread and butter is wrestling, right? You're a wrestling show.
Right.
Maybe that's the case. I didn't get to see that, but yeah, that makes total sense.
So, and someone wrote in the chat, like, would an example of this being like Butch, like attacking Sheamus? Well, kind of, right? Like Butch did attack Sheamus in last week's episode. However, Butch has also come to the ring to interfere with his matches. And so, in my opinion, that's so much better.
Yeah.
Now, that raises the stakes. That actually gives you an outcome that the problem could be solved in the ring, right? So, Butch and Sheamus, I like the build. I like the variety. I like that he's brought in the shillelagh stick. I like that he's no longer Butch, but now he's Pete Dunne. He's no longer wearing the Brawling Brutes outfit. Now he's back to kind of being the bruiser way. So like, that's probably a great example of doing it well. The terrible example would be all of the damage control or LWO backstage beatdowns that we've seen for months and months that have no stakes and no matches, right? Where Carlito beat up Dragon Lee and left him in the garage, and surveillance camera got it, and we never got a Carlito versus Dragon Lee match. Dragon Lee's injured and disappeared. Carlito went to the Judgment Day. They never settled the story, and they never got in the ring. and they never actually addressed one another. Lee, why has the story of Liv Morgan and Dominic and Rhea been so good? Because they've addressed one another face to face, time and time again. Right? Give us the interaction. That's what we want. We don't just want blind physicality. That doesn't raise the stakes.
Yeah. It's good when they can tease it to where they hold off on the in-ring confrontation after there's been a lot of build-up, like your CM Punk Drew McIntyre. That was a lot of build-up, and then they finally got to it, and it felt really special. But when you're right, when it's just like, backstage promo, backstage attack, and then nothing comes of it, you're like, why did we do that? What was I supposed to get from that?
Listen, here's the counter offering to it.
Okay.
And in my opinion, the most interesting thing happening on wrestling and all of wrestling right now is the Bronson Reed in-ring assault of doing finisher after finisher after finisher to Seth Rollins, and now a second victim, R-Truth. It has been excellent. The thing they're doing in ring with high stakes storytelling, elevation of this character. He's not a cheap shot artist. He's winning the match or interrupting the promo and then settling it in the ring to show his dominance. And I love it. I love Bronson Reed is out of control.
Yeah.
And it matters, right? Doesn't it matter? Well, yeah, and so as we experienced a little bit of tech difficulty today, I mean, I think the bottom line, Lee, is that we want to see things matter that happen in the ring. We want to see the stories advance. We want to see the conflict rise. And a cheap shot backstage just isn't getting that job. It's not accomplishing what I think they think it's accomplishing. We should probably wrap up today's episode. I'm excited. Tune in next week, Lee. We've got a community spotlight, don't we? And we've got some other exciting things happening.
We should, yeah. I'm going to be interviewing Sensei Kreese tomorrow, if all goes well, and so we would have that on there. And then we've got a faction leader conversation that's going to happen between two top faction leaders, where we're just going to kind of facilitate it and let them talk about some things. Because we are in factions, we are officers, we're not the leaders. And so get some insights from that. Yeah. But we appreciate you guys dealing with these issues. If you're on YouTube, you didn't see them, but the video obviously cut out at various points because of this. So thank you for keeping up with the content and watching it. We really appreciate it. If we offended any of you, reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you about it. However, just be aware, hey, maybe we said something that you needed to hear. You needed a personal challenge with that. So, take
chat.
that for what it's worth.
It's a little bit of dad chat.
Yeah. We'll be that friend who says hard words that you need to hear sometimes. But anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Be sure and follow us on Twitch and YouTube, and we're going to be on the official channel every Friday night, power rating some characters that you need to know how good they are. We'll see you on the next one. It's an honor to be a part of this community alongside of you. Bye. Oh wait, I hit the wrong one. I hit the logo. I took the logo off instead of putting our video bumper on.